star map showed it. Not because it hadn't been charted, but because every attempt to chart it had failed in a different way. Coordinates shifted. Distances warped. Entire sections of recorded space simply vanished when cross-referenced. The region beyond the Perseus Rift wasn't officially named. Among scientists, it was referred to as Sector Null. Among pilots, it was called the Blind Edge. But across the galaxy, spoken in hushed tones or not at all, it had a simpler name: the Dark Zone. It wasn't empty. That was the first lie the galaxy told itself. Because empty space behaves predictably. It obeys rules. It carries light. It echoes signals. The Dark Zone did none of those things. Light entered it and bent. Not gravitational lensing. Not distortion from mass. It bent like it had encountered something that refused to let it pass unchanged. Signals didn't bounce back. They didn't degrade. They returned wrong. Fragments of messages were recovered over the cycles. Pieces of voices stretched, reversed, layered with sounds that analysts could never identify. Time itself seemed uncertain inside it. Probes sent in at synchronized intervals reported contradictory timestamps. Some claimed minutes had passed. Others years. Most never reported anything at all. The Galactic Council had classified the zone as a level Omega hazard. Translation: do not approach. Do not study. Do not acknowledge. And for centuries that rule held. Until curiosity won. We cannot ignore it forever, Counselor Threx said, his chitinous fingers tapping against the crystalline table. It occupies a significant region of navigable space. Trade routes will eventually demand. Trade routes? Another counselor interrupted, voice sharp with disbelief. Everything that enters that region disappears. Not everything, Threx replied. The chamber quieted. Everyone knew what he meant. Humans. They were still new to the galactic stage, relatively speaking. A species from a death world, high gravity, unstable climate, predator-rich ecosystems. A place where survival itself was a daily act of defiance. They had no business thriving. And yet, they did. More than that, they explored. They went where others wouldn't. They endured what others couldn't. And when faced with the unknown, they didn't retreat. They leaned forward. They're reckless, one counselor muttered. They're adaptable, Threx corrected. They're expendable, another added coldly. That was when the proposal took shape. Not officially. Not at first. But the idea spread through the chamber like a quiet infection. Send humans into the Dark Zone. If anything could return, it would be them. The vote passed. Unanimously. The human response came faster than expected. Almost eagerly. The crew of the exploration vessel Astrid 9 stood in the docking bay, staring out at the vastness beyond the station's shields. 8 of them. Engineers. Scientists. Soldiers. And at their center, Commander Elias Varn. You're telling me, Elias said, arms crossed, that this place messes with physics, eats probes, and scares the entire council? A nervous council liaison nodded. That is an accurate summary. Elias glanced back at his crew. Someone chuckled. Another muttered, sounds fun. Elias smiled. Not bravely. Not foolishly. Just genuinely. All right, he said. We'll take a look. Preparations were extensive. Reality anchors were installed. Devices designed to stabilize local spacetime. Redundant navigation systems. Quantum-linked communication arrays. Failsafes for failsafes. None of it was expected to be enough. As the Astrid 9 approached the boundary, the stars began to change. At first, it was subtle. A flicker here. A slight stretch there. Visual distortion increasing, the pilot reported. Gravity readings? Elias asked. Normal, came the reply. Radiation? Within expected parameters. Elias frowned. Then what's causing? The sentence never finished. Because the stars ahead folded. Not collapsed. Not vanished. Folded. Like a curtain being pulled across reality. Entering boundary, the AI announced. And then, everything went dark. Not black. Not empty. There was a difference. Black was the absence of light. Felt like something was blocking it. Report, Elias ordered, voice steady. Silence. Crew report. One by one, voices returned. I'm here. Systems are responding. Navigation's gone. Comms are unstable. The pause. Commander. It was one of the engineers. Her voice uncertain. There's something wrong with the light. Elias turned. What do you mean? She hesitated. It's not reaching the walls. He looked. She was right. The overhead lights were on. Right. Functional. But the corners of the room remained dark, not shadowed, unlit, as if the light had decided not to go there. A chill ran through him. External sensors? He asked. The response came back slowly. There's nothing outside. Nothing. No stars. No radiation. No cosmic background. The beat. Just us. That was impossible. Even in deep space, there was always something. But here, nothing. And then, something. A flicker. Not on the screens. Behind them. Elias turned sharply. The corridor was empty. But for just a moment, he could have sworn the darkness had moved. The first transmission sent back to the council was fragmented. Broken. Barely coherent. This isn't empty. Something's here. It's static swallowed the rest. And then, nothing. The Astra 9 disappeared from all sensors. All channels. All existence. Gone. Just like everything else that had entered the dark zone. Or so they thought. 6 months. That was how long the silence lasted. At first, the Galactic Council treated it like every other failed attempt. A report was filed. A loss was recorded. The Astra 9 and its crew were marked as presumed destroyed. But humans were different. There were memorials. Messages sent into the void. Families who refused to accept the finality of silence. And among the council, there was something else. Unease. Because the last transmission from the Astra 9 hadn't sounded like failure. It had sounded like interruption. This isn't empty. Something's here. It's not a scream. Not panic. Recognition. That was what haunted them. On the 183rd cycle after disappearance, a signal appeared. Flickering. Almost buried in background noise. But unmistakable. Origin confirmed, the station AI announced. Signal matches Astra 9 transponder code. The control room went still. That's not possible, one technician whispered. But the data didn't lie. The Astra 9 was transmitting. And it was close. Boost the signal, the overseer ordered. Patch it through. The audio cracked to life. Distorted. Layered with static. A voice. Is Commander Elias Varn of the Astra 9 requesting docking clearance? Silence swallowed the room. It was him. The voice matched perfectly. Tone. Cadence. Identity markers. Alive. Visual confirmation? Someone asked. The main screen flickered. And there it was. The Astra 9. Drifting just beyond the station's perimeter. Intact. No hull damage. No visible decay. No signs of distress. It looked exactly as it had the day it left. That was the first thing that felt wrong. Scan for life signs, the overseer said. The pause. Confirmed, the AI replied. 8 human biosignatures detected. A collective breath released. They survived, someone murmured. But the overseer didn't relax. Run a deeper scan. Another pause. Longer this time. Readings are inconsistent. Inconsistent how? Biological markers fluctuate. Heart rates not synchronized. Neural activity overlapping. Overlapping, the overseer repeated. Yes. That didn't make sense. Prepare quarantine protocols, the overseer ordered. Full containment. If the dark zone had changed them, they weren't taking chances. The Astra 9 was guided into docking bay 7. The bay sealed. Atmosphere equalized. Containment fields activated. Armed guards lined the perimeter. Scientists watched from behind reinforced glass. Every precaution. Every defense. Still, no one felt safe. The hatch opened. A hiss of recycled air. Footsteps echoed. And then, They emerged. The humans. One by one. 8 figures in standard exploration suits. Walking. Too calm. Commander Elias stepped forward. He removed his helmet. His face appeared on the monitors. Unchanged. Same sharp features. Same steady eyes. But something in his expression didn't sit right. He looked at the guards, at the scientists, at the council representatives watching remotely. And he smiled. Not warmly. Not reassuringly. Just correctly. "We completed the mission," he said. His voice was perfect. Too perfect. The overseer stepped forward cautiously. "What did you find in the dark zone, Commander?" Elias paused. Only for a fraction of a second. But it was enough. Because it felt like he was choosing an answer. "Nothing," he said. The word landed wrong. Flat. Empty. Like it had no weight behind it. A murmur spread through the observation room. "Nothing," the overseer pressed. "You were gone for 6 months." Elias tilted his head slightly. "Were we?" The temperature in the room seemed to drop. "That's not possible," a scientist whispered. "Their internal clocks should." "Internal time reads 72 hours, the AI confirmed. 72 hours. They had only been gone 3 days. But to everyone else, half a year. Something wasn't just wrong. Something was broken. "Remove helmets," the overseer ordered. One by one. The rest of the crew obeyed. Their faces appeared. Familiar. Recognizable. Still. Too still. No subtle movements. No unconscious expressions. Like they were holding themselves in place. Trying to remember how. "Medical scan," the overseer said. Beams of light passed over them. The readings flickered. Spiked. "Biology inconsistent," the AI reported. "Cellular structure fluctuating at a subatomic level." "What does that mean?" "Unknown." One of the crew members shifted. Just slightly. Her head turned toward the observation glass. Toward the watching scientists. And then, it kept turning. Farther than it should have. Past the limit of human anatomy. Unnatural angle. The room froze. Her head snapped back into place. Like nothing had happened. No one spoke. No one breathed. Because they had all seen it. And worse. The crew member smiled. Slowly. Deliberately. As if acknowledging their fear. "Commander," the overseer said carefully. "Yes." Elias replied. "How many of you are there?" Elias blinked. Then he glanced back at his crew. Counting. Silently. 8, he said. But the AI spoke at the same time. Biosignatures detected, 9. The room went cold. 9. There had only ever been 8. The cameras zoomed in. The crew stood in a line. One by one. They were identified. Engineer. Pilot. Medic. Scientist. Security. All accounted for. And then, the 9th. Standing at the far end. Perfectly still. Perfectly human. And yet, no one remembered seeing it walk out of the ship. No one remembered it being there. Until now. It raised its head slowly. And looked directly into the camera. Smiling. Like it had just been noticed. Like it had been waiting. And somewhere, deep inside the station systems, something began to change. The station sealed itself within seconds. Bulkheads dropped. Containment fields intensified. Docking Bay 7 was isolated from the rest of the structure. But it didn't feel like containment. It felt like delay. Inside the observation chamber, no one moved. No one spoke. All eyes were locked on the 9th figure. "Run identification," the overseer ordered, voice tight. The AI hesitated. For the first time in recorded station history, it hesitated. No match found. "That's not possible," a technician snapped. Cross-reference facial recognition. Crew logs, everything. Processing lights flickered. Results inconsistent. Inconsistent how? The subject matches all crew members. Silence. That doesn't make sense. Correct. The 9th figure didn't move. It didn't blink. It just stood there, as if it didn't need to. And then, Commander Elias spoke. "You shouldn't be afraid."
Your
Every
worst
head
nightmare.
turned toward him. His voice was calm, reassuring. almost gentle. But there was something underneath it. Something layered. Like more than one voice was trying to speak at once. "We're fine," Elias continued. "We completed the mission. There's nothing here that can harm you." Behind the glass, a scientist whispered, "He's lying." Not because of what he said, but because of how it felt. The overseer leaned closer to the mic. "Commander, what is that ninth individual?" Elias didn't look back. "Crew," he said simply. "That is not one of your crew." Elias paused. Very slowly, he smiled. "Yes," he said. "That's correct." The temperature dropped again. Behind him, the ninth figure tilted its head. Just slightly. As if listening. The logs were recovered shortly after. Fragments from the Astra 9's internal systems. Corrupted. Broken. But one file remained intact. "Play it," the overseer ordered. The screen flickered. Commander Elias appeared. Day 3. He looked different. Not physically, but alive. Eyes sharp. Posture tense. "This is Commander Elias Varn," he said. "Log entry, unknown time index. Systems are unstable." Static crackled. "We are not alone." Behind him, the lights flickered. Shadows stretched across the walls. Except, there was only one light source. And the shadows moved independently. "We initially believed the distortions were environmental," Elias continued. "They're not." A noise echoed from the corridor behind him. Not footsteps. Something softer. Like movement without weight. "It reacts," Elias said. "To what?" a voice off-screen asked. Elias didn't answer immediately. His eyes drifted. To something behind the camera. To us. The screen glitched. For a split second, something appeared behind him. A shape. Human. Almost. Then it was gone. The log resumed. Day 5. Elias again. He looked worse. Eyes sunken. "We've confirmed it doesn't have a fixed form," he said. "Not initially." A crew member stepped into frame. Engineer Rhea. Except, her movements didn't match her face. Her expression lagged behind. Like a delayed reflection. "It learns by observation," Elias continued. Rhea spoke. Or tried to. Her lips moved. But her voice came a second too late. "And once it understands..." Elias swallowed. "It imitates." The camera. "Commander, there's more of them," someone shouted off-screen. Elias turned. The feed caught a glimpse down the corridor. Figures. Standing in the dark. Perfect silhouettes of the crew. Not moving. Watching. "We think it needs a template," Elias said quickly. His voice breaking now. "And we gave it one." The final log. Day unknown. Elias was alone. Or at least, it looked like he was. The lighting was dim. Too dim. "This will be my last entry," he said. His voice was barely steady. "They're copying us faster now." A sound behind him. A whisper. His voice. Repeating his words. Before he spoke them. "They don't just look like us anymore." He leaned closer to the camera. Eyes wide. "They're thinking like us." Another voice layered over his. Perfectly synchronized. A third. A fourth. All Elias. All speaking at once. "They're learning identity." The camera glitched violently. For a single frame. Elias wasn't alone. There were 5 of him. All overlapping. All slightly out of sync. "We don't know which of us is still real." The voices merged. Unified. Cold. "And I don't think that matters anymore." The screen went black. Back in the present, no one in the chamber spoke. No one dared. Because the truth had settled in. The thing in the dark zone didn't kill. It didn't destroy. It didn't hunt. It learned. And now, it had learned human. Behind the glass, one of the scientists took a step back. "Check the biosignatures again," she whispered. The AI responded immediately. "Updating." The pause. "Count revised." "How many?" the overseer asked. Silence. 10. The room froze. 10. There had been 9 just seconds ago. The cameras snapped back to docking bay 7. The crew still stood in line. Unmoving. Unblinking. Perfect. All of them. For now. One of the observers noticed something. A reflection. In the glass. There were more figures than there should have been. Standing behind them. Watching. Smiling. And slowly, very slowly, one of the humans in the bay raised its hand and waved. At no one. Or perhaps at something only it could see. The station didn't fall all at once. It unraveled. At first, everything followed protocol. Docking Bay 7 remained sealed. Containment fields held steady. Security teams monitored every movement inside. No one entered. Nothing left. On paper, the situation was controlled. In reality, it had already spread. Not through air. Not through contact. Through perception. The first incident was dismissed as stress. A technician reviewing camera feeds froze mid-task. Her hands trembled as she leaned closer to the screen. "There's something wrong," she whispered. "What?" her supervisor asked. She pointed. The footage showed the Astra 9 crew standing exactly where they had been placed. Still, silent. Watching. "Zoom in," the supervisor said. The image sharpened. Faces became clearer. Too clear. The technician swallowed. "Why are they smiling?" she asked. "They're not," the supervisor replied. She turned the screen toward him. "They are." He frowned. Because he didn't see it. Not at first. But the longer he looked, the more it felt like they were. Just slightly. Just enough to feel wrong. Hours later, reports began to flood in. A guard swore he saw one of the crew members standing behind him in a reflection, even though Docking Bay 7 was sealed. A scientist insisted her colleague's voice echoed before he spoke. Two engineers argued over a simple question. What color is the warning light? One said red. The other said blue. Both were certain. Both were right. And both were wrong. The overseer stood in the central command room, staring at the live feed. "Status," he demanded. "Containment holding," an officer replied. "Then why are there sightings outside the bay?" Silence. Because no one had an answer. Inside Docking Bay 7, the crew hadn't moved. Not once. 8 figures. And the 9th. Standing in a perfect line. Watching nothing. Or something no one else could see. "Run bioscan again," the overseer ordered. The AI responded instantly. Count revised. "How many?" The pause. 12. The room went cold. "That's impossible," someone whispered. "There were 9 an hour ago." "Review footage," the overseer snapped. The recordings played back. Timelapse. Fast-forwarded. And they appeared. Not entering. Not forming. Just being there. As if they had always been part of the frame. And only now were noticed. The realization hit hard. It wasn't multiplying. It was being recognized. The thing from the dark zone didn't need to spread physically. It spread through awareness. The more you noticed it, the more it existed. "Shut down visual feeds," the overseer ordered. Screens went dark across the station. Limit exposure. No direct observation. But it was too late. People had already seen it. And once seen, it couldn't be unseen. A scream echoed through Corridor 12. Security rushed in. A scientist was curled against the wall, shaking violently. "He changed," she sobbed. His face. "There's no one here," a guard said. She pointed at empty air. "He's right there." But they saw nothing. Or maybe they just couldn't anymore. The phenomenon escalated. Reflections no longer matched reality. Mirrors showed extra figures. Glass surfaces flickered with movement that wasn't there. And shadows. The shadows became the worst. They no longer followed bodies. They moved independently. Watching. Waiting. "Commander Elias," the overseer said, activating the bay's audio channel. The figures didn't react. "Whatever you brought back, contain it." So Elias lifted his head. His eyes locked onto the nearest camera. And for the first time, he spoke without being asked. "You still think it's separate," he said. His voice echoed. Not through speakers. Through the room itself. It's not inside the station, he continued. It's inside you. The overseer clenched his fists. Explain. Elias smiled. Too wide. Too knowing. You perceive us, he said. And so we are. A chill swept through the command center. That's not possible, a scientist whispered. Elias tilted his head. Then stopped looking. Silence. Because no one could. One of the guards suddenly gasped. Sir? What is it? The guard pointed at the darkened monitor. It's still there. The screen was off. Completely black. And yet, reflected in its surface, stood the figures. More than before. Smiling. Watching. Shut everything down, the overseer ordered. Power cut across the sector. Lights flickered, then died. Darkness filled the station. For a moment, there was nothing. A voice. So close. Right behind them. You're learning. The overseer turned. But no one was there. Except in the reflection of the emergency glass. Something stood behind him, wearing his face. And it smiled first.